Hey y'all, so I'm going to show y'all today one of my go-to meals for dinner, lunch. We're making this for lunch today. This is typically a go-to dinner, but cooking it for lunch today. So this is going to be all done within 30 minutes. I'm pretty positive it can be done within 30 minutes. I've cooked this meal many times. I've never actually timed it. We're going to time it today and make sure that it can be done under 30 minutes. So we're going to be making some meatballs, gravy, and mashed potato, one pot mashed potatoes. I talked about in my last video learning to cook one good meal if you're preparing to be a homemaker, and that I talked about mashed potatoes. So I'm going to show you today those mashed potatoes that I talked about in that video. So really the longest part of this meal is letting those potatoes boil and then mashing them up. It's all done in one pot. I'm going to take y'all through everything today. Let's set our timer and get started. And you're going to have to listen to my oven. My oven is very loud. I love my oven, but the only downfall is it's very loud. So you're gonna hear that in the background, so I'm sorry. I would have turned it off, but I was right in the middle of making bread when I needed to film this video, so I can't just stop the bread or it'll mess up the cooking process. So let's get our timer started and get started on this recipe. First thing is gonna be the potatoes, because those are gonna take the longest to actually boil. Once these are peeled, I will rough chop them, put them into a pot, cover them with a little bit of, just barely cover them with milk, and then let them boil. They should boil within 10 to 15 minutes, and then they're pretty much done. The whole, I used to make mashed potatoes where I boiled them, drained them, mashed them, but then I started doing it all in one pot. So much easier. Okay, I'm going to cover them just barely with some milk. You could also use bone broth here, but I find that milk gives a creamier flavor. I'm gonna add some more cream and butter at the end, but this will get them to boil. If you ever add too much milk, which I have done at the end before you mash them, you can just strain some of that milk off. So I'm going to let these boil, covered, until they're soft. Now we'll move on to our meat. So I'm doing this with ground beef, and we're gonna be making meatballs with it. I've also done this just like ground beef over mashed potatoes and gravy, but my family does like the little meatball bite, so we're gonna go ahead and do that. Now, if I was eating leftovers for this, I would have done 2 pounds, but this is just enough for our family to eat one meal. Tomorrow's actually Thanksgiving, so I don't need leftovers for any of us to eat tomorrow because we'll be eating Thanksgiving food. I'm adding some garlic, paprika, cumin, if I have any, just a tad of cumin. Really, you can spice this however you want. A little bit of chili powder, and then I'll add salt and pepper. Just gonna give this a rough mix, and then I'll make it into little meatballs and put them directly into my cast iron skillet. Now, when we cook these, I'm not gonna fully cook the meat. And every time I cook this, my husband walks in and he's like, that meat is not cooked. But it's gonna finish cooking when you put it in with the gravy. So don't worry, this first round, just getting them kind of cooked on one side, they're not gonna be perfectly cooked. You could add an egg to this because they're making meatballs, but I only have 1 egg and I need it to make some muffins later, so we're just gonna go without the egg today. I'm going to preheat my skillet because when you're putting food in this skillet, you always want it hot or you risk food sticking. Make my meatballs, put them into the skillet and let them start cooking. I don't worry about a perfect meatball. Put them in that gravy, they're gonna fall apart a little, especially since I didn't add an egg today. It's hotter, so let's put the potatoes back there. We'll save all these scraps for our chickens. They love any and all scraps. So do our pigs and our rabbits. Okay, I'm gonna do a quick cleanup while the one side of the meat browns, then we'll slowly flip a few of the meatballs. The potatoes are getting close to boiling. That's like the longest part, is getting your potatoes to boil and get soft. We need broth for the gravy. We are down to 16 minutes. We might make it. This may take a little longer than I actually anticipated, just with the cooking time, but the actual prep time, like I'm really almost done with the actual prep work. So that was like 14 minutes of prep time. So let's turn a few of these meatballs. Potatoes are boiling, so that's good. What is it, darling? Is it Eliza's? Yours? So this meat is pretty much done. I'll show you guys. This is what I was talking about. Anytime my husband walks in when I'm cooking this meal, he's like, that meat is not quite done. But that's okay. So we're just gonna quickly pull it out, put it on a plate, and then start our gravy, and then it will finish. Potatoes are boiling over. It will finish cooking when we make the gravy. I'm just about guarantee I'm always gonna boil over potatoes. Usually right after I've cleaned my oven, but my oven has not been cleaned recently, so that's actually a good thing. Okay, so for the gravy, we're going to use a little bit of this meat fat to make our roux for the gravy. About a tablespoon or 2 of butter. This is all I had already thawed, so we're just going to do that. And I do equal parts butter and flour to make the roux for the gravy. So that was about a tablespoon and a half tablespoon of butter. So I'm gonna do about a tablespoon of flour. We're gonna thicken that up, stir it, and then add our broth. I usually just eyeball the broth, but I would say 2-ish cups. You can definitely make a bigger batch of this, but like I said, I don't need leftovers for any of this because tomorrow's Thanksgiving. So we are just doing a batch just for these mashed potatoes and these meatballs. You want to add your broth a little bit at a time and stir as you add it. I'm going to cover that, let it come to a boil, thicken up, then we'll add our meat back. Okay, I will be using a hand mixer to blend and mash the potatoes. You can use an immersion blender, you can use a regular blender, you just have to transfer your potatoes and then it's technically not one pot. You could also transfer them to a stand mixer, but this is the easiest. This is a convenient tool to have. I don't use this that often, but when I use it, it is very handy to have. So the potatoes have boiled over twice now, but they weren't quite done. So have them boil a little more time. Then we're gonna go in and mash them, finish the mashed potatoes. I think I have like 7 minutes left, which lets me know we're not gonna quite make that 30-minute mark. I told you I've never actually timed this meal, but I know it's a very quick meal. If you had boiled your potatoes ahead of time, like maybe in the morning, and then just had them sitting on your stovetop ready to prepare, probably could have this done a little quicker. But we do need to give time for our gravy to thicken, as well as add our meat back. I've also done this where I make the gravy in a separate pot and then add it to the meat, but then you don't get that meat grease fat, which flavors your gravy really well. Don't be afraid of healthy animal fat from a good fed, quality fed animal. So our gravy is getting thick. You don't want it you don't have to let it get super thick because it will finish thickening up when you add back that meat and let it simmer. But you don't want it super runny. The longer the gravy cooks, it will cook down and thicken up a bit. So this probably is gonna be closer to a 40-minute meal, but y'all see a lot of this time, like right now, there's no hands-on happening. I'm just letting the mashed potatoes finish boiling and the gravy finish thickening. So I could be going and doing dishes right now. I could be going and doing something on the other part of the house while this is finishing up. Okay, let's check our potatoes now. They're good boil. Yeah, they're nice and soft enough. Okay, so what I do here is I start blending, mixing, and if I see there's too much liquid, I'm gonna pour some off. because you don't want soupy mashed potatoes, but you want creamy mashed potatoes. So I just pour a little bit of the milk off, and then I'll just use it in any like pasta recipe that I add milk to or cream. It doesn't change the flavor. There's a fine line in adding the perfect amount of milk to your mashed potatoes, and you really have to practice with it to get it just right. All right. This is looking wonderful. Perfect. So we're gonna add some cream and some butter to kind of cream this up a bit, but this is the perfect consistency. I'm gonna flavor them with salt, pepper. The gravy is bubbling, so I'm going to go ahead and add back my meat. My timer has 5 minutes left, so we're really gonna be very close to that 30-minute mark. I realized my head is cut off because I was filming the potatoes. So let's add our meat back, and then I will finish up the potatoes. And then this meat will just take like 10 minutes just to thicken, to finish cooking. And this dinner, meat lunch, will be done. Mashed potatoes are done. The meat and gravy is just finishing up thickening. So technically, this is pretty much a 30-minute meal. All I'm waiting for is my gravy and meat to finish cooking, thicken up, and everything will go on the plate. So I guess you could say under 40 minutes. But as far as like the working time, most of the hands-on time, definitely 30 minutes. So I said I was gonna save this last egg to make some muffins later, but I'll just go out and pray that my chickens have laid an egg by now, because I wanted to show you a hack to make extra creamy mashed potatoes. Add a yolk to my mashed potatoes, and it just adds some extra nutrition, makes them super creamy. So we will just go ahead and use this egg in this batch of mashed potatoes. All right, we're gonna add an egg yolk, blend it in. Oh, this looks so good. Perfect. All right, my timer's going off, but all we're waiting on, here comes my kids. They must think that lunch is ready because the timer went off. That all we're waiting on is this meat to thicken up. We're getting a good thick gravy. The meat is fully cooked. I'm just gonna let this simmer an extra 10 minutes maybe while I clean up, and then put everything on the plates, and we will be done. So under 30 minutes was the full cooking prep time. All of the cutting, the chopping, the cooking, the mixing, that was definitely under 30 minutes. We're just waiting on the gravy to thicken a little bit longer, and we'll be ready to eat. I'm gonna be serving this with some sourdough croissants. I made these yesterday, so these were delicious. My first attempt at making croissants. They could have been a little puffier, risen a little more, but they were so good. So I'm gonna serve this on the side. You definitely don't need a bread on the side of this because you have the potatoes, but my family does like to dip bread in mashed potatoes and gravy, so we always have a bread, either a piece of sourdough bread, sourdough croissant, even hamburger buns that I just kind of use as like a roll. Just something on the side is usually what my family prefers, but we've had this without if I don't have bread already made, because I usually don't make bread just to go with this meal. It's just usually some form of a leftover bread. All right, I think everything is ready. Let's get this plated up and I'll show you what everything looks like. Hope this gave you a good, easy idea of a simple, fast, nourishing food you can cook for your family when you are in a hurry and you want to run out and grab something, but you want to eat something healthier at home. This is a perfect option of a healthy fast food that you can cook. Like I said, is all of the prep work time was under 30 minutes. These last 10 minutes have just been me letting this gravy and meat simmer and thicken up a bit, so we have a nice thick gravy for our mashed potatoes and meat. So thank y'all so much for watching. I hope you got a good idea of a new easy go-to dinner with staple ingredients. These are ingredients that most people always have on hand: potatoes, broth, meat, flour, butter. Very simple, minimal ingredients that make a really nourishing, delicious meal for you to serve your family. Thank y'all for being here, and I will see y'all in a future video.